Hey guys, Jay here. So today we're going to be taking a look at the LAIV Harmony DAC, a popular R2R DAC in the market that came recently. And the people that are behind this DAC are actually the people that used to distribute Denafrips DACs in Singapore worldwide. So if you ever bought Denafrips DACs in the past, then you probably have dealt with them before. Now, interestingly though, this company has nothing to do with Denafrips. All the engineering, all the manufacturing is done by engineers in Singapore. So this, I guess, is my first reviewing a full-fledged Singaporean DAC. So what is an R2R DAC and why should you care? Well, an R2R DAC is different from off-the-shelf DAC chips that's bought from, already existing companies like Sabre, AKM, Burr Brown, and so on. And just to be clear, not always, because it depends on the implementation of these DACs to begin with, but I found myself that a lot of these Delta Sigma off-the-shelf DAC chips sound more or less a little bit more clinical and, for the lack of better words, digital, right? Has that digital edge, again, for the lack of better words. And R2R DACs are different in that it's not chips, it's resistors that literally create a ladder network, which does the digital to analog conversion. And largely, these kind of DACs sound different from Delta Sigma DAC chips, and a lot of people gravitate towards R2R DACs like this, including myself, because it tends to sound a little bit more, again, for the lack of better words, organic, natural, better timbre and tonal characteristics, more warmer, easier to listen to. And on top of that, for me, really it's about the soundstage. Instead of creating this kind of 2D wall of sound, when I throw in an R2R DAC like this that's really good into my system, it often creates this holographic 3D kind of experience where I can depict the instruments and so on to more kind of a feeling that it's in my room. It just sounds more musical and musically engaging personally for me. And plus, it's easier to listen to, it's inviting to listen to, so I can listen to it for longer periods of time. And again, there's many different types of R2R DACs in the market, but as you'll see in a minute, the LAIV Harmony DAC here has all the great hallmarks of a great R2R DAC, at least in my opinion. So I was actually one of the very first reviewers to receive a LAIV Harmony DAC sample, and that means that I've had it for about a year now. And in that time, instead of me reviewing the DAC right away, I decided to really take my time with it to compare it to Denafrips and Holo Audio and competitor DACs so that I have a more firm understanding of what this DAC does well and what it doesn't do well. Now, I'm not throwing any shade or anything like that, but in that meantime of me comparing to different DACs, I've seen a lot of other reviews come up of the LAIV Harmony, with a lot of them being very positive rave reviews, with some even stating that it outclasses their Terminator, or Holo Audio May flagship DACs from these brands. Which honestly for me is a really bold statement, because for me, as I've stated in the past numerous times, both the Denafrips and Holo Audio DACs to me is a DAC that punches above its price points. So for the LAIV Harmony to basically demolish these DACs was a pretty big, bold statement in my eyes. And once the honeymoon phase was over, and really when I listened side by side with Holo Audio and Denafrips DACs, what I found was that while I did appreciate the sound of the LAIV Harmony, I didn't quite agree with the fact that it compared directly to flagship DACs from Denafrips or Holo Audio. I just didn't think that it was at that level. Not to mention the fact that both the Terminator and the Holo Audio May cost nearly double the price of this LAIV Harmony DAC. Keep in mind that the price for the LAIV Harmony actually includes duties and free shipping for selected countries. And that goes the same for the 30-day return policy. Now, I must say, despite that this DAC is a much smaller DAC than the flagship DACs from Holo Audio or Denafrips for that matter, really, the build quality on this DAC is phenomenal and really does top even Denafrips and Holo Audio flagship DACs in terms of industrial design and build quality. From the quality and the shape of the aluminum chassis to even the buttons and the control dials, it's high quality that is rare to see at this price point. Even the remote that comes with the unit is incredibly well made. Now, the spikes that come with the unit are also very nice and are meant for stacking units in the future, as evident by these small built-in spike holders on the unit. But I am personally not a fan of spikes in general for my gear because they can easily scratch surfaces that they're put on. Inside of the unit is equally impressive and very visually attractive. It has a very clean layout with high quality components like AudioNote Kaisei capacitors in the signal path and Rubicon caps for the rest. It also has an O-ring type transformer for the better noise performance. Some really serious quality packed into this. You know, there's silver cabling, there's the femto clock as well for audio purposes only, made specifically for audio. And of course, you can't forget about the R2R ladder network inside this kind of gold bar here. Very nice. And that's something that's unusual about this R2R DAC. Most R2R DACs that I've seen in the market usually has the ladder network that you can see on the board itself. Same thing with Denafrips, Holo Audio, Socris, and so on. Here is enclosed in this kind of gold bar, and there's actually a very good reason for it. And one interesting thing about the internals of this DAC compared to other DACs in the market is that it was actually made modular for easy serviceability as well as future upgradability, which also includes the network for the R2R, which technically means that they may have something better that you can easily switch out, including again that R2R network in the future, which if it does come to fruition, I think is a very enticing way to upgrade. Instead of getting a whole new DAC, you just upgrade parts of the DAC. And personally, I'm very interested in the future how they're going to roll out upgrades for the R2R network itself. Most of the digital inputs you would need are provided, including the I2S and the USB. With an interesting feature over coax, if you're using a CD transport, it will track the info onto your Live Harmony DAC. Of course, it has both RCA and XLR analog outputs, always nice to see. Now, this is really not a big concern, but one thing to note about the analog outputs of this DAC is that the output impedance is a little bit high, with the RCA being 600 ohms output impedance and the XLR having 1200 ohm output impedance. Now, for most gear in the market, this is really not a problem as they mostly have high input impedance. But for certain components, like a passive preamplifier, for example, that tend to have low input impedance, this can cause compatibility issues. So if you're ever in doubt, make sure to contact LAIV or respective companies to make sure it's compatible and will work without any issues. And talking about compatibility, it also has a pretty unique feature to support 8 different I2S modes, making it compatible with a wide range of products that have I2S. Now, just like many R2R DACs in the market, this DAC also has 2 different modes, one being non-oversampling mode or NOS mode, and one being oversampling OS mode. And whether it be the NOS or the OS, I enjoyed this DAC equally well. But there were a little bit of a difference. The NOS mode was softer and easier on the transient and overall a little bit warmer and richer sounding, which a typical R2R DAC sound that you can ask for. With the OS mode being a little bit more quicker on the transients, a little bit more lifted in the high frequency compared to the NOS mode, and did have a little bit more definition around edges of instruments, vocals, and strings, and so on. Both really sounded good to me, and really what I preferred, which mode I preferred, really came down to the system that I had going on or the music choice. I think if I were to describe the sound of the Live Harmony DAC with one word, it would be comfortable. Whether it be in NOS mode or OS mode, I found the overall sound signature of this DAC to be somewhere between Denafrips house sound that concentrates more on detail and nuance and finesse, and Holo Audio's house sound, which tends to be a little bit more warmer and richer and just more inviting. The Live Harmony in a way has the most balanced sound. And it doesn't have the quite obvious wow factor, but it is a DAC that you tend to appreciate more and more as you spend more time with it. In a way, I can see how some people are saying this is better than Terminator or the Holo Audio May. Because while the Live Harmony DAC doesn't quite have the transients and the detail and the nuance of a Denafrips DAC, it still has good amounts of detail. And it's not so dark or so warm that you kind of smear the transients in a way where it doesn't feel like it's sparkling. It does have a really nice soundstage, width and depth, and it does have really good layering. That's a hallmark of a really good R2R DAC. And it's not so much as to how wide and holographic the soundstage is, but it's more like you can depict the instruments and the separations more distinctively within the layered soundstage that really adds to this DAC seeming like it has a lot of nuance and detail, even compared to Denafrips DACs. So while I still think Denafrips DACs are more superior in the transients and detail, I think that the Live Harmony does a really good job in that front as well, just not as good as the Denafrips DACs by a smidge. And as for the warmth of this DAC, I would say it's less warm than the Holo Audio, but still, nevertheless, overall a warm sounding DAC. And this gives an interesting advantage when it comes to matching, because it can be matched with warmer gear, warmer speakers, more so than with Holo Audio in my opinion, especially in the OS mode. I touched upon this a little bit earlier, but one thing I really do find this DAC to be exceptionally great at is the soundstage and the layering of the sound, which is again a hallmark of a great R2R DAC sound, and why I personally gravitate towards R2R DACs in general, because when I listen to a R2R DAC in my system, instead of creating a flat wall of sound, it allows me to hear into the music more and be more engaged in a more holographic 3D presentation, again, rather than a flat wall of sound, and that's just personally what I like. All of this makes the LAIV Harmony DAC one of the most attractive R2R DACs I've tried. However, I wouldn't come to a quick conclusion that this DAC is better than the Terminator from Denafrips or May from Holo Audio. Not really even the Terminator, but the Pontus 15th that I reviewed recently has better micro details and nuance in my opinion, and the Holo Audio Spring 2 that I reviewed way back had more warmth and a softer transience. So it all really comes down to what kind of type of sound that you're looking for to add to your system. So who is this for? So first of all, if you value aesthetics and the high-end audio presentation in terms of build quality, unboxing experience, and all that kind of stuff, I think you'll be very impressed with this DAC. Even if you're coming from an ultra high-end component, I think you wouldn't be disappointed with this DAC's overall presentation, build quality, and overall sound signature. Also, if you value customer service and future upgradability, I think this DAC will be a great fit, as the people that do customer service for LAIV was the people that did customer service for Denafrips. And they did a great job, and a lot of people were very happy and pleased with the customer service delivered to them. So if you're looking for an exceptional customer service experience with the possibility of future upgrades down the line, I think this will be a good fit. Especially if you're someone that's new to R2R DACs and don't want to have any headaches just in case. Again, I think the customer service is kind of underrated in a lot of cases. And talking about that, someone that is new to R2R DACs and have a budget under $3,000, I think this is a great DAC. It has all the hallmarks of what I would like to hear in an R2R DAC. It's natural sounding, again, has good warmth and good musicality to the sound. And if you're someone that's sensitive to high frequencies, I think this is a really good DAC to try out. And just to add to that, while I do think that Denafrips and Holo Audio have distinctively different sounds than the LAIV Harmony and does some things better like I mentioned, I still prefer the overall sonic character, the overall tonality of the LAIV Harmony. Like I said, it has the most balanced sound signature. And that ties in with my next thought, which is that if you have the older generation of Pontus DACs, I think this is an upgrade. And if you have the current generation, the Pontus 15th, and you find the details and nuance to be nice, but it's a little bit too much towards the brilliant side, and you want a warmer, a little bit better layering, and a easier listening experience, I think you will love the LAIV Harmony DAC. Conversely, if you own a Holo Audio DAC and you find it to be too warm in your system, which is a problem I ran into in some of my systems in the past when I reviewed the Holo Audio DACs, I think the LAIV Harmony is a great choice because while it's warm, it's certainly less warm than the Holo Audio. And if you wanted a little bit more open, high frequency and a little bit more airiness, I think this DAC does it very well, especially in the OS mode. So yeah, while I didn't fully agree that this DAC competes at the level of flagship DACs from Denafrips or Holo Audio, I did really enjoy the overall sound signature, and like I said, probably my favorite sound signature from any R2R DAC I've heard thus far. So I can definitely understand why so many people love this DAC. So that's it from me. I hope this video was helpful and entertaining, and if it was, consider clicking that like button and subscribing for more videos in the future, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Until next time.